Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name's Nyssa. If you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. I'm starting this video off now because I'm going to do a whole bunch of food-based stuff, and how I figured out with the new, the job and everything else is that basically I film everything I do and then I figure out how it's going to slot together. So it's Friday morning, so I've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off before I go back to work. So there is a few things planned. I will do a Sunday squirrel type video over the weekend. We've got more contractors coming out today to do some stuff, so I will hopefully get some more update. Like, we'll be at a better point to share some of that stuff then. But it does mean that there's potential for dogs and stuff to go off too. It is really, really windy today too, so maybe that's why he's not coming out. I don't know. We will see. It's already lunchtime. I just took my watch off to charge it, but it's around lunchtime. The kids have already done their chores, had lunch, and are on computers at the moment until we need help with other stuff. But there's just a few things I need to get done. So I actually cleaned the freezers out this morning, in the chest freezers, as I reorganized them. So when we brought home the half a cow, and then when I brought home all that chicken, basically everything just got laid flat in the freezers, however it got laid. And I've been struggling to find stuff. So what I've done is I've reorganized it so all the chicken is in one fridge and all the beef freezer, and all the beef is in another freezer, and stacked them accordingly so that, like, the mince is stacked from the bottom to the top of the freezer so that it's easier to see. I was actually contemplating some 3D prints. I was thinking about how I could make some 3D prints. I tend to freeze everything in 1 kilo bags, like all the mince and stuff. So if I created a framework that I could stack those 1 kilo vacuum seal bags in flat from the bottom to the top of the freezer, that way that stack is that particular item, and then I could potentially rotate, put the newer stuff underneath, because I tend to not always run out before I get the newer ones in, and I'm having a think about it. We've tried a bunch of different baskets and stuff in the freezer. Most of the plastic that you use goes brittle because it's in a freezer, but if I used PETG or something like that, and I 3D printed my own sort of framework for the chest freezer, I'm having to think about it. I'm thinking about it. I've also been trying to reorganize my drawers and stuff, so I'm 3D printing some Gridfinity grids in my drawers so that I can keep track of things a bit better. I'm just a little bit over the bedlam at the moment. The kitchen doesn't help, because the kitchen's in bedlam. It makes other things an issue. The gentleman who's been coming around to do the clearing and trees and stuff is going to attempt to help Darryl to get this kitchen roof on, which would be really great if we could manage to do that. That would be a massive piece of, things getting done. So we will see how we go with that over the next however long. But because I was cleaning the freezer out, I was pulling bits and pieces of meat out for the next couple of days. I pulled some chicken trim out. I'm going to make some nuggets type things out of that. I pulled some mince out that I put in the fridge to use for, I want to make some meat pies. So I did that, and I pulled some mince out for making hamburgers tonight as well. So I've got a bunch of beef mince out, I've got a bunch of chicken trim out, and then we're going to see what we do there. I may grab out some chicken thighs as well, probably the boneless, skinless ones, to make some chicken burger patties out of too. Like, I want to crumb them and make them as like whole crumb chicken pieces that could have on burgers or something. But we're just going to do beef burgers for dinner tonight. We need to use some lettuce out of the let pot. It is at a point where we basically need to have eaten all of that to then replant it. So I'm going to make some burger buns first thing. The tractor turned up. I had some lunch anyway. I've got the brioche dough in the KitchenAid now for our hamburger rolls. I am going to attempt this again. So I bought 2 of these when I bought them. They're about $20 a bag, so they're very expensive. But Darryl's the only one who eats the stuff that I bake with it. I made brioche rolls out of them last time, and they were okay, but they weren't great. I'm going to do a half batch this time, just half the flour. So we're going to go down to about the 17-18% of my normal recipe. And I'm going to do it in a bowl by hand, because I think I may have over kneaded it a little bit. which meant that it had a lot of tension, and I didn't want it to have that much tension because it does have psyllium fiber blend and stuff in this. So when I look at the instructions on the bottom, it just says to 5 minutes of gentle mixing and kneading is all you need. So I think I'm just going to mix it in the bowl by hand and see if it allows me to make it a little bit wetter and make the buns a little flatter, a little bit more like, you know, a grilled low carb bun rather than the big higher buns like I normally make, because there was too much bread. And at the cost that this is too, it's unnecessary. So I ended up cutting the rolls into like 3 or 4 because they were just too high. So yes, I'm going to do half this bag, this recipe, to test it out. I'm going to try and make it a little bit wetter, and I'm going to try and spread it out a little bit more for the baking. We'll see how we go. So that's what I've come out with. I'll share the ratios if this works out. But what we've got is like this thick, doughy, batter type ingredient mix, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to work it anymore. I'm now going to put a cover over it, and I'm going to let it proof, because it proofed really nicely last time, and we'll see what it does, and if I can just sort of shape it into like flat rounds rather than the higher buns. I think I've got the texture right. We'll see how we go. I mean, realistically, my normal brioche dough isn't much different to that. It's still like a thicker batter rather than a solid dough, so we'll see. I've oiled my container. I'm going to put it in there to proof. In between tasks, let me move you. In between tasks, we're going to get a few things done. I want to make some yogurt, so I've got the milk powder out for that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some sweetened condensed milk, because I'm thinking that I want to make oh man, the dog's driving me nuts. I want to make some Ninja Creamy. I want to try the Ninja Creamy recipes that use the condensed milk, because whilst some of my just throw together Ninja Creamies work, they all work fine. They're all completely edible. They're not quite the same as like buying a tub of ice cream. I can make a custard, and that's similar, but making a custard means that I'm using eggs. I don't have a huge amount of eggs at the moment. So a lot of these recipes have a sweetened condensed milk in their base, and so we're going to give that a go. Now, I reckon I could do a double batch in here. It just need cooking a little bit longer, and I'm gonna give that a go, because if I'm going to run the Thermomix, then I kind of want to make the most of it. So I'm going to do a double batch. I can't find anywhere that says that it won't fit. Like, I did a bit of a Google to see if anyone had a poor time with trying to do a double batch. You can't see it anywhere. So I'm going to try doing a double batch. There is a layer of dust on every surface at the moment because the tractor is still going. So sweetened condensed milk, super easy in the Thermomix. You throw everything in pretty much. We got butter and water to start with. So rinse the lid. Follow the instructions. We're going to heat that for 3 minutes, 120 degrees. We're going to melt that butter into that water, and then we will move on. All right, so then we want to add our sugar. So we've got doing a double batch, so we want 360 grams of sugar. This is not a low sugar recipe. I would like to try making a keto version at some point, but for the moment we're sticking with the normal, because I'm intending to make some authentic tasting ice cream out of it. So 360 of sugar. We want 220 of milk powder. I've just got Aldi's full cream milk powder that I use. So what, 360, we want 220. I didn't tear it. So 360, 560, 580 all up. $5.80, and then we want a pinch of salt. And that's it. Now we just blend it until smooth. And then we're going to scrape down the sides. Now, I thought there was one more cooking point on it, but there isn't. I was going to cook it for a little bit longer, but that first point is the only point that it cooks. And I didn't check if it got up to temperature or not because I just wasn't thinking about it while doing everything. But I can't see any sugar crystals or anything else, and that's sort of what it is you've got to heat the butter and the water up so it emulsifies and make sure that there's no that it's hot enough that when you add the sugar and you blend it that there's no crystallization. Now that feels perfectly smooth to me, so it tastes like condensed milk. I reckon I could have almost done a triple batch, to be honest, but that looks perfect to me. So I'm going to put a lid on that for the moment so it doesn't get full of dust, and I'm going to decant that into what am I saying? I'm going to decant that into jars in a minute. While it's doing that, I know, I'm all over the place. I'm going to make some yogurt while I get the milk powder out, but the yogurt jar has been sitting with no lid on it, so it needs a good clean and sterilize first. Do a super simple yogurt base. I'm going to use UHT milk because then I don't have to heat it and cool it. And last time I tried adding some maple syrup and stuff to the base before I fermented it, thinking that it would be pre-sweetened. It's not worth doing. The maple sort of coagulated into sort of ribbons in the yogurt, which might have been okay, I suppose, but the kids didn't like the texture factor of it. So all I'm going to do is, this milk powder wasn't sealed, is I'm going to put, it'll be a 2 litre batch of yogurt, so I'm going to put 250 grams of, or 220 grams of, I think I'll stick to the 110 per litre, so 220 grams of milk powder because we want it really nice and thick. Which is a lot more than I used to use, but the kids have been really fussy about wanting the thicker yogurt, and that's fine. It's still a cheap way to make yogurt in comparison to buying enough yogurt for the multitude of children that I have. So all I'm going to do is whisk that milk powder into the milk. I still haven't bought calcium chloride, which I keep on talking about every time I make yogurt, which also helps to thicken it up, but I haven't got it yet. Don't get too close or they won't be able to see. Need to focus on, there we go. You and your dirty nails.
They're not that dirty.
So now I just need the yogurt culture too. Now, I can't find my yogurt measuring spoons, so I'm going to go, the goal is to get like about 1/3 of 1/8 of a teaspoon for this batch, which is always hard, but if you go too much sometimes it fails, and if you go too little sometimes it fails, so you know, I'll put some in there, and I need to find my little spoons, so end up like a thick shake basically. So we're going to whisk that in, top it up with more milk and set it fermenting. And then once it's fermented, I will add fruit or sweetener or whatever. I think that's how I'll do it from in future. Making a mess as per usual. All right. And then, yeah, I'm just going to put it in to ferment for 8 to 10 hours. I'll let it go until bedtime, and then I'll stick it in the fridge overnight, and then it can be flavoured tomorrow and they can use it tomorrow. Oh, the dog, I tell ya. Next thing I'm going to do is the dough. So I'm just going to give you a quick look. It's really quite tacky. As I said, it's a bit like a batter rather than dough, but that's what I was looking for. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to tip it out. It's nice and bubbly. It doesn't have that same tension that it had when I was, the last time I made it, when I was trying to shape it. It was really, really bouncy and really difficult to shape. So what I'm basically doing is I'm attempting to, the equivalent of punching it down and just giving it a little bit more structure. but yeah, it doesn't feel like dough as such, but that's what I actually wanted this time, and we're gonna see if it works. It may not, so let's go half, maybe thirds, and let's see if I can still manipulate it to a dough, which I can, and then we're going to flatten it out. A bit of oil on my hands, and we can flatten it out into a disc. We're going to give that a go. I don't know how much of this sound I'm going to be able to use because the dog is just ridiculous. He will not stop. It's not even the dog that normally barks all the time. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same process with these, and then I'm going to do my normal process with my normal dough. This is $10 worth of flour in here, not counting any of the other ingredients. So let's hope that these work. But luckily, Darryl is very unfussy and tends to eat whatever I make him in whatever it is. So that was 6 rolls out of that 225 grams of flour, which worked out, all right, it works out, just the flour alone works out about 5 grams of carbs per roll, which is pretty good for a decent, you know, like if it works. And there'd be a few extra bits and pieces of carbs in the coconut cream and stuff. But yeah, so we will see. I'm going to put these aside. I did these first so they got plenty of time to proof, because I know that these ones just don't take very long to proof once I do the second proof. So I'm just going to shape them like normal. All right, I decided to just do these at the 75-80 gram mark, sort of not a bit bigger than a slider, but not an overly large burger bun. I just decided to do it that way because the kids like to. It's one of those things, it doesn't matter how big I make them, the kids want 2 of them and then waste some of them and things like that, because, you know, kids and their quantity over quality thing. So I did them fairly small. So I've got egg mixed with a little bit of water as a brush on them, just to give them a bit of brown and to stick the sesame seeds to them. So this is the first tray of standard buns, and then there is a second tray of standard buns, and then there's the tray with the low carb ones and a few standard on it. So I ended up with 34 standard out of the dough, and that's about normal. I normally 32 to 34. So, and these have puffed but stayed fairly flat. Possibly could have even taken them a little bit smaller. We will see how they cook up. I got sidetracked, but there's the 2 jars of condensed milk. So tomorrow I will turn that into some Ninja Creamy ice cream mixes. I won't be able to mix that up until the next day, but that's done, which will be nice to try those different. I just want to make like a vanilla ice cream that's just vanilla ice cream. I really like just plain vanilla ice cream with things like, you know, baked goods or apple pies and things like that. So I'd really like to. And the custard-based ones that I make, they're pretty darn close, but they're a lot of effort to cook a custard-based one, and you have to have the eggs available and all that sort of stuff. So if I can do this, then I'll be happy. Here are the rolls. Now, they're too hot to handle too much to show you too much, but the keto ones look good. Now, the only thing is, again, when we cut them open, they have to be a bit cooler, but when we cut them open, is if they end up a little bit cakey rather than bready, because I didn't work that dough as much, we'll have to see if that happened and if the dough needs that working a little bit more, just to make it more like a chewy bread dough than a more cakey. So we will see how that works. No egg in them though. No egg in them though, so that shouldn't be too bad, but that's the buns done. This is what the low carb ones turned out like. Obviously still a little bit more moist and dense than a standard bun, but pretty good, and they've ended up with that nice and flat. So that's good. I've cooked off the meat patties and everyone's just going to serve themselves. And I made some mayo, and everyone's just going to serve themselves burgers for dinner. Hey everyone, it is, what is today? Today is Saturday. I'm getting a very late start. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but there's a few things that I need to do that need to chill overnight anyway. One of those is meat pies. So what I need to do is I need to make the meat pie filling, and then I also want to make the short crust bottoms for the pies. So we need to cook up all the stuff for the meat pies today, let it simmer, and then refrigerate it before we fill pastry. Now I'm just using mince for my meat pie filling. I've got plenty of diced beef and chuck and stuff, but I don't want to use that for the meat pie filling when I've got all this mince to use. And whilst, yes, a nice chunky pie is tasty, mince pies can be just as tasty. So that's what we're starting with today. I'm going to cook off some onion and some garlic and things like that to start with. I might pull out some bacon. We'll have a look. We'll decide what else I want to put in there. I don't think I've got much in the way of any sort of vegetables. I think I've got some frozen zucchini, so I could add some frozen zucchini. But I think we're pretty low on carrots because we're in week 4 of our 6-week shopping trip. And sometimes we end up with plenty of carrots for the entire 6 weeks. Sometimes we don't. It just depends on how much the kids have been snacking on them or not. And they've been snacking on them a fair bit this month. So we will just slice up some onions. Now this is going to cook for a few hours to reduce, so it doesn't need to be too small. And I'm going to sort of very mildly caramelize them off before I add all the mince in as well, just to add that flavor profile to it. So I got 5 onions here. I think I pulled 2 kilos of mince out. So I'll cook these 5 onions off. I'll get a handful of garlic, and then I'll have a look at what else I want to put in. I have some of this traditional bacon, and I forgot to defrost it. So I've just put it in some warm water to get it soft enough to dice up, which will be fine for going into the pan with the onions. So I turned it down really low while I've been doing this, and I'm going to throw it in the pan with the ovens. But the other thing I was going to make today was the chicken nugget farce, the insides of chicken nuggets. And so what I'm going to do is use the really fatty pieces of this bacon as the pork fat to go in with the chicken. 2 birds, 1 stone and all that. I thought it had defrosted a bit more before I took it out of the plastic, but I'm going to put this back in plastic and get it in some warm water, just enough so I can separate it, dice it up. It's going to go in the Thermomix with the chicken, so it doesn't matter if it's a little bit frozen then either. We're just cooking it all off. Right, so we've got some semi-caramelized onions as well as those bacon bits. I'm going to add in garlic now that I've just turned the pan down a little bit. Cook that off slightly. Then I've got the mince. Now I do have 2 kilos of mince, but this is how cold the bottom of our the fridge is. I pulled this out yesterday morning, and this one's still pretty solid, and this one still has a lot of solid bits in it. So I'm going to have to just cut it up, stick it in, put the lid on, let it defrost a little bit, and then brown it off, sort of thing. Some of the bits are pull-outable. Some will need to be just chunked up a bit to defrost. Pros and cons to the bottom of that fridge being as cold as it is. Alright, so all our mince is cooked off, and we're all good. Now, I feel like I should have done a bigger batch. We'll see how this batch goes as to, that sort of thing. I'm going to add a few things. I'm going to add some balsamic vinegar, which, as I always say, is basically my alternative to red wine, because I just never have any in the house. I'm going to add a really generous slug of the homemade Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to add a jar of chicken stock. Now this is going to be too much liquid to begin with, but we're going to let it simmer without the lid on, supervised, for a good couple of hours. So some of my really nice rich chicken stock, but also a jar of the mushrooms and mushroom stock. Now I probably should have broken them up beforehand. I kept them big for Darryl's benefit because he is the one who eats the mushrooms, but I probably should have cut them up a bit before. Oh well, it's fine. As I find them, I might pull them out and break them up a little bit, but they should break up a little bit in cooking anyway. So we've done that. We're going to add some beef stock cube. Just got the Massel's beef bouillon, and I'm actually only going to add probably a teaspoon worth at this point, because I'll probably end up adding the Maggi Rich gravy powder. So we don't want to push the salt too high at this point. It's just about getting it nice and moist and thick and that sort of thing. So we're going to put this on low and just let it simmer for the moment, and I'll come back and add a few things later. I need to make the pastry for this, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because first up I'm going to mix up the chicken farce for the nuggets. So chicken farce is basically pink slime, as people call it, for like when they do all those exposés on McDonald's and stuff, how they've got pink slime as their chicken nugget mixture. Well, all chicken nuggets that aren't like breast meat generally start as a farce, which is basically just a pureed chicken meat. It gives it that bouncy texture. So I've done this before, and my Thermomix has no jug in it, so give me a second. Someone said the other day, and I don't know if I remember to say anything about it or not, that I seem to favour the old machine over the new one. It's just because the old one has 3 bowls. So I will use this for this one, but then I'll have to move to the old one to make the pastry. They aren't selling the second bowls just loose at the moment, but they're also a bit more expensive than I can afford. And to earn a second bowl at the moment, I had to make 3 sales between somewhere in March and the 12th of April or something, and I've only sold 1. So I'm unlikely to do that. I only sell 1 a month-ish sort of thing as people reach out, because I'm not exactly a good salesman, because I don't even remember to tell people that if they're interested, they can order them. There's a trade-up offer at the moment too. So you can trade up your 31s, your 5s and your 6s to get a discount against a 7. And you can also get a second bowl for $199 if you purchase at the moment. So, you know, there's my spiel. So we're going to make the chicken farce. So we're going to do it in, I don't think it liked a kilo. I think I had to do it in 500 gram lots. So I'm just going to put the scales on, and we want like 500 grams of chicken. Now this is chicken trim, so it's mostly breast meat, which means that it is pretty lean. So I'm going to add in about 100 grams of this really fatty pork per 500 grams. And then we're going to just puree this to start with. So I just did 15 seconds on speed 5 to get it broken up. The chicken's already a mince, obviously. So we're at like textured mince at the moment. All right, now we're going to add some of this Knorr chicken bouillon, because it has MSG in it, which is like a flavour that works really well for, I'm trying to find my notes here. We went with a teaspoon of bouillon. We then added, I'm not going to add salt because the bouillon has salt in it. I'm going to put like a teaspoon of white pepper. And we're going to put a pinch of sugar, just a teaspoonful of sugar. And then we're going to put a little bit of garlic powder. Actually, do you know what I might do, just to make my life easier, is normally I had garlic and onion powder on here. I think I'm just going to add another teaspoon of the bouillon mix, because that has all that in there. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we want to add the cornstarch as well. Which helps to give it that bouncy texture. Sort of 3 spoonfuls, I think, is what worked. All right, now we're going to bring this to the pink mix. So that was another 30 seconds, but I bumped the speed to 8. And then we just want to add a little bit of cold water until it's emulsified. So it's not quite as smooth as I'd like, actually. I'm going to take that on again, and part of that's going to be because the mince was partially frozen. I might bump that up to 10. And I'm going to drizzle that water in. Just a couple of teaspoons. And that ended up being about a minute all up. Sorry, I'm just stirring the beef mince as well. And we've got chicken farce. So about a minute all up of the whole process, just adding things in a couple of stages, and you have chicken nugget filling. So now I'm going to grab a spatula, I'm going to grab a bowl, I'm going to scrape this into a bowl, and I'm just going to repeat the process. All right, so we've got just under 4 kilos of chicken farce. I'm going to chill it before shaping it because it's hot and it's easier to do that I'm going to chill it before we've got a bit that didn't get broken up in there, I didn't realise. Can you grab the bowl back for me? Can I have that black Thermomix bowl back, please? A little bit got missed. I just need to put it back through. Right, I just went through it with my hands and got any bits that were a bit big, having been frozen chunks. And all I'm going to do is put scoops on here, and I just lightly greased the baking paper as well, and I'm just going to lay out as many as I can with a little bit of distance, but we're just going to be aware when we're flattening them because I only have limited room for trays in the freezer. Alright, and then I'm just going to bit of oil on my fingers, and we will just, now these are fairly large chicken pieces because basically I don't want to spend the time to make tiny ones. Darryl came out while I was doing the nugget shaping and suggested that since we've got leftover rolls, we could do chicken burgers for dinner tonight. So I'm going to shape some into about the 90-gram patties like I would the beef, and chill these and crumb them, and we will have them as chicken burger patties as well. I might do another tray of patties too, and keep doing nuggets. The problem's going to be having enough room to chill them in the freezers, but I should be able to layer these because we want them flat anyway, so I should be able to layer them with oil, baking paper, put the next lot on. As long as they get chilled well enough, the baking paper should just peel off. My mic is almost flat. I need to go and charge it. Just wanted to say. So we ended up, each of these nuggets is 45 to 50 grams each, which I'd imagine is quite a bit larger than a standard nugget. I'm not real sure. I might actually Google and see what the average weight of like a Macca's nugget is. But I think these are larger. They're more like flat tenders, round tenders rather than elongated tenders. And I did think about that. I probably could have made them elongated. I possibly could have even piped them out into like elongated tenders. Maybe that would be less time. I don't know. This isn't too difficult to do. So we're just getting them evenly flattened so that they cook evenly in a overly circular shape. So we got 4 layers of these, 14. So what's that? 4 4s are 16, 56 of these 50-gram nuggets. And then I did 2 trays of the 90-gram patties. I can't remember how many was in each layer of that. And this is using around about $4 of meat. About $3 worth of chicken trim and about $1 worth of maybe $5 worth of meat for all of this. So I think it's worth the effort for that. Now I still have to crumb them obviously, and that's kind of the worst part actually. But we will get there tomorrow maybe once they've chilled overnight. I've just added some gravy powder to the pie mince, and it's a lot better colour now. with the gravy powder added, but I can add some dark soy as well if I want to deepen it just that little bit. And I'm just going to let that simmer off just a little bit longer to thicken just a little bit more. Then that will go in the fridge to chill too. I'm going to charge my mic, and then before I make dinner, I'm going to get that pastry made and in the fridge as well. Right, so the chicken patties have been in the freezer. They're not as solid as I would like because I actually pulled them out and then had to go do something else. But we will make it work. Flour, egg, and then we've got crumbs. Wet hand, dry hand. Use one hand for all the wet stuff. And that's done. So we're just going to repeat that process, and I'm going to fry them off. I'll show them to you when they're done. There you go. So like giant chicken nugget burger patties, nice and crunchy. Wait, we do this there. So nice and crunchy and perfect size for burgers, so they will be tasty. And we'll have the last of the lettuce from the let pot probably, and some mayo on the burgers.
You think that's my job?
My mic wasn't on. Condensed milk. The other thing that I have to do, I made this so that I could try some basic condensed milk based ice cream. Ninja Creamy jar. I'm going to just make 4 basic vanillas. So I'm going to put 200 grams, which should be about half a jar of condensed milk. I'm going to put 100 mils of cream. I don't like too much cream in my Ninja Creamies because otherwise I find that it can go almost buttery. Like that. And then I'm going to add some vanilla and some milk. And that is it. And we will, if this is not flavored enough, we'll add mix-ins. Now, this is the milk that I got from the hamper, and it's been sealed. I had to actually like unseal that lid. And it seems fine. Worst is it's a tiny bit sour, and when it's whizzed into ice cream, no one's going to know. So, but it's going to be messy to pour this. I can just see it being an issue. So I'm going to have to clean up. But basically, that's all I'm going to do. Take it to the max fill line. I'm going to blend it, and I'm just going to repeat the process for each one and make 4 super simple basic vanilla ice creams because it's about all the energy I have at the moment. But I wanted to try, my goal here was to make a super simple vanilla. Like, as I said, I want a vanilla ice cream. That's my thing, is that I just want something that's super simple that I don't have to cook a custard for, but that is a classically just base level vanilla. So that's what we're doing. And if this works, then yeah, I can just have tubs of this in the freezer, and it can be whatever add-ins added to it. Just like that. And I'm gonna get the blender out and blend them all. And I'll try and remember to show them to you when I actually use them. It is Sunday, and I am filming a squirrel as well at the same time, so this may end up working, not working. Anyway, I need to make the pastry. I forgot to make it yesterday afternoon, so I need to get that done and in the fridge so I can use it later on. So I make a really simple pastry. It's really malleable, really easy to use. I do 400 grams of plain flour. Let me grab my plain flour. 400 grams of plain flour. We do 60 grams of, normally I use lard that I've rendered myself. I'm using the tallow that I bought from the store because I haven't bought any bulk lard this year at all. I do have some beef fat in the freezer from the half cow, but I'm going to do that sometime later in winter as a project. But I really, really dislike the smell of tallow rendering, which is why I normally use lard. So I probably should try and get a bulk batch of pig fat again to make some more lard up. We now have freezer that I could potentially store it, because the problem is that whilst it is shelf stable, with our temperatures, it's not really that shelf stable and it causes some issues. So I need to be able to store it in the freezer or a fridge before I use that jar. So anyway, so we got 60 grams of lard, 400 grams of flour, 60 grams of, I'm doing this off the top of my head and I'm remembering everything right, 60 grams of olive oil. And then I did a pinch of salt, and we do 110 grams of icy water. And then we just bring it together. Speed 5. I did 15 seconds. That lard is very, very firm because it's been stored in the fridge. So it has pushed things up the side a little bit. So I'm going to scrape down. I don't always have to do that. But with that lard being I probably could have brought the lard and the flour together first and then added the water, maybe. Would have made that a little bit... I will make another batch, so I'll try it that way. And it feels like it might be just a touch dry. So let's do another 5 seconds. And we've got this. And this might be... No, it comes together fine. And you've still got those flecks of fat in there, so that should be fine. So now all I need to do is tip it out onto my dough mat, which is oiled still because I just used it. Oop. And then we tip it all out. Like this. And bring it all together. Just like that. And then I split it in half. Where's my dough cutter there? I split it in half, and I generally do one half just a little bigger than the others, because normally I'm putting... Oh, my wrist is not happy. Normally I'm putting a base and a top, but we might be doing puff pastry with these ones. We'll see. So I normally do a slightly bigger round and a slightly smaller round, because the rounds for the top for the pie don't need to be as big. So those two are done, and all they'll do is I'll put them in a Ziploc bag in the fridge. Not that I had you pointing at the mat very well, but 2 pieces, one slightly bigger than the other. They'll go in a Ziploc bag in the fridge, and then I'll pull them out to roll out later. So I'm just going to repeat the process and have 2 lots of it. I do need to crumb all the rest of those chicken nuggets. I don't know if I mentioned, but the chicken burger patties were a massive hit. They were so good. They were so moist. And so I did deep fry them. I had like 2 inches of oil, an inch of oil on the bottom of a big cast iron pot, and I fried them off in there. So I did deep fry them, but they were really, really good. I think I'll have to do that again. The chicken trim is definitely... It ends up being like $1 something a kilo was all I paid for it. And so long as I make the effort, it works as stir fries, it works as burgers, it works as nuggets. Definitely worth getting. So they were really good. I do need to crumb the rest of the nuggets. I haven't done that yet. What else needs doing? There's not much in the way of snacks. I did the 2 litres of yogurt the other day, and I was actually going to divide it up. I had some like overnight oats jars on my wish list that got bought for me, and I thought maybe what I'll do is, because that 2 litre jar of yogurt is really difficult to flavour unless I don't fill it all the way, but then why not fill it all the way if I'm fermenting it, sort of thing. Maybe I will separate it into the little individual jars as flavoured pots for the kids to have of a morning. I think I already had a pack of 6 that I'd bought myself on Amazon, and then I'd had a couple of other varieties on the list, and I'm pretty sure I ended up with another pack of 6. So I think I've got at least 12. So I should do that. Even some of the overnight oat type stuff, the kids did like that, so long as I made it sweet enough for them to want it. So I think the smaller ones would probably work well for the overnight oats, and the bigger ones can just be yogurt, and they can add granola to it if they want, or just eat it as is. I can put some pureed fruit in it, things like that. So I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to do it right now. So this video will turn over to another day, though tomorrow we may be pulling this kitchen apart, so I may not be able to do much tomorrow, which is good that I've got all that bread that you haven't seen because that was in the Sunday video, but I made a whole bunch of bread. I'll put a photo up here. So I just made a whole bunch of bread today as my Sunday squirrel thing, and that will be eaten over the next few days. So now I need to actually go and finish filming the rest of the Sunday squirrel. It's just really hot at the moment. So, but I'm going to leave off food there for now. I don't know what we're doing for dinner yet. I haven't made any plans. Don't know. I've got meat pies. That's what else I need to do. I need to pull the pastry out and cook the pies. So it's 3:15. So in 45 minutes, I will come out again and I will do the pastry and the pies so that we have them for dinner tonight. Yeah. So I'll spend the next 45 minutes or whatever, and I'll try and get the Sunday squirrel together, and then I'll roll over this one, and this one will roll over another day. I just did a whole pie and didn't realise that I wasn't filming. So, you know, cool, hey. See me do the next one. So this one is full, like that. Now, I'm not going to put the top on it just yet because I'm not sure how many pie fillings worth of pie filling I've got here. So I'm going to roll out the next one. And we might end up with puff pastry on the top of at least one of them. I'm not real sure yet. So I did just say, and I have to try and remember, that I should have pulled this pie dough out 20 minutes ago, and I didn't. And it's a bit cold and a bit crumbly. But it's also 4:30 in the afternoon, and I still have to bake the pies. Darryl has gone to get water from the bore because we need water for the animals and my fruit trees. Our stock tank is empty. And luckily this dough is super forgiving, so even though it's breaking up and crumbling a bit, it can just be pushed into the corners of the pie dish, and where bits break off can be patched. And as I say every time I make a pie on camera, my pies are super rustic. They are not winning any awards because pastry has never been my thing. Bread dough, totally, yep, I can do bread. Pastry, not so much. So all I do is, this is more crumbly than usual, I think. When I was processing it up, and I said I thought it was a little dry, but I didn't want to add too much extra liquid. I definitely think I should have added a bit more liquid in this one because getting this up off the thing is going to be challenging. So I think you're going to see me have a bit of a fail here. Let's see if we can get enough of it up to then just repair it as needed. That's just the goal. Enough up, and we'll repair it in the pie dish. So just going to push it into all the spots, and then anywhere I need to patch it up, I will pull some excess from other places and push it into the spots that need it. Just like that. Very forgiving dough. And then we're just going to do the same. We're going to fill this one, and I think there'll be enough here, though I probably should leave some outside of pastry for Darryl to have. So maybe I will just do the two with the short crust, and Darryl can just heat up the pie filling to have without the pastry. That might be the way to go. So just getting enough in here to have a little bit of a mound on top so that it doesn't look sunken when it all heats like that. And then I'll get Sonnet to put this back in the fridge for Dad for dinner. Thank you. And we'll just roll the tops out for these. It's Same process again. The dough's a little bit, the pastry's a little bit cold and a little bit crumbly, so we will just do what we can and make it work. Shows how easy this pie dough is to use though. If you've ever been worried about pie dough, look at this mess. Obviously I needed to, as I said, I normally use lard that I render myself, and maybe that has a bit of a higher, like you're supposed to cook all the water out of the lard, but maybe it's got a bit of a higher water content than that store-bought tallow. I don't know. Maybe it's the weather. Who knows? Doughs, pastries, they all behave weird and wonderfully for many different reasons. So I'm just using a bit of oil instead of using flour because the dough's already a bit crumblier than I would like. And this one doesn't need to be rolled out as big because it's the top of the pie. So we're going to cheat and get what we can. Again, I said real life, this shows that anyone can use this dough because the amount of mess I'm making of it, and when it's done it'll still look and taste awesome. So then we just pull this back and we look, doing soup. Oh my goodness. Well, there's my slit in the top. Don't need to make it a hole anymore, do I? All right, and then we just flute it. Which again, very haphazard. I'm just taking the excess off and using the fluting in the pie dish as a guide. Just like that. And then normally I would stick a knife slit nice and centered, but I've got this great big tear in the pastry, so we're all good in that account. Anyway, I'm just going to do the same thing with the second one. I'll show them to you when they're cooked. Of course, the second one that I did ended up a whole lot neater than the first one where I showed you all my faffing about. But anyway, so second one's together, just trimmed and fluting, and then I will put a slit in the top like that, and there we go. You can egg wash them if you want. I probably won't bother, but you can. They take about 45-50 minutes to cook, which is why I'm doing it now. It's 4:45 now, so it should be ready by about 5:30. And we might do some mashed potato to have with them. Steamed veg maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But that is the pies done for today. Hey everyone, it is Saturday. I think this will be the end of the food prep weekly video, or this video may have traversed over 2 videos. I don't know. I pulled all the footage in last night to have a look at what I had, and I've got about an hour of footage, but that doesn't always equate to an hour of video. Editing process, sometimes it ends up being half that, sometimes it ends up being most of that. You just don't know. It depends on how good I've been with turning the camera on and off and things like that. Sometimes I leave the camera running for 15 minutes because my hands are dirty and I'm walking away and I just haven't had a chance to turn off, and that just depends on the day. So for the moment we're going to do this to continue on as if it's the same video, and if not, we will figure it out. So it is Saturday and stuff has happened, but I haven't filmed a lot of it. I did pulled beef and mac and cheese for dinner last night, but I didn't film any of it because my kitchen was a mess and I just couldn't be bothered. And everyone's just had lunch. They had leftover mac and cheese with pulled beef and frozen English muffins and stuff. I've been going through my freezers and stuff trying to figure out what I need to use before I go shopping again to tidy up space. So for dinner tonight, I've got 1 5-kilo bag left of the little wing drumettes, and it's just the drumettes, and they weren't our favourite, but I've got a 5 kilo bag of those from the freezer, which takes up a lot of room. So I'm defrosting those and we will have them for dinner tonight. Darryl has a church function tomorrow for Easter and has asked me to do some baking. So that is on the cards for today as well. And I was thinking of making a couple of chocolate Easter treats. We'll see how we go. First up, I'm going to make some dough up because Darryl asked for some savoury scrolls for the church lunch tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to do first. Now, we are very short on cheese because I go shopping this week. So we're very short on cheese, but I do have Parmesan. So maybe I'll do like a garlic Parmesan type not scroll thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Darryl was talking about going into town today. If he goes into town, he can grab me some cheese. But cheese is one of those things that are quite expensive to buy in town compared to buying at Costco or Coles. So we will see. I could always do some cinnamony ones. Because they're being baked today and served tomorrow, realistically, I need to ice them just to keep them really nice and moist. And I don't know if I've got any cream cheese. So we'll have to have a look at that. But I also was going to make a vanilla slice, and I don't know whether that's to send or just to eat. I haven't had vanilla slice in a really long time, and it came up in something I was scrolling on, and I really want to make it. So I think I'm going to do that. So I might pull that up on the Thermomix to make the custard for that as my first step and get the dough together. All right, so we're going super simple. We are going to use the Thermomix recipe, which I haven't tried before, but we're going to give a go. And we're just going to follow it. I've got some pre-made puff pastry. I'm just going to use that. So we're going to follow the recipe. So first up, we're making the custard. We got 90 grams of sugar, 120 grams of cornstarch, or corn flour, because we want this to be a really solid sort of a custard. 550 grams of milk, and we're just going to use UHT milk because it's what I've got. 550 grams, and then we're going to use, now it says vanilla syrup, homemade vanilla syrup, which I assume is a sweetened, they're talking a sweetened vanilla. And my vanilla bean paste is very vanilla-y, but it's not sweetened. But for 2 teaspoons, I don't see how that's going to affect the sweetness level particularly much. So I'm going to use vanilla bean paste, because vanilla flex, you know. And then we're going to put the lid on and cook it. All right, and then in the meantime, what I've done is I've cut 2 squares of pastry off my puff pastry, which will fit in one of my brownie pans. So we've got a slightly smaller one because the bottom is smaller and then it flares up. And then I'm going to bake these off. So I'm going to place some baking paper on a tray. I don't know if I'll fit both of these on here. It'd be good if we could, but we shall see. I reckon that should be fine. Alright, so we're going to put both those pieces in there. And then I'm going to put another piece of baking paper over the top and another baking tray on top, and we're going to bake these off. We've cooked this for the 6 minutes. We need 6 egg yolks. I thought it was 4. Apparently it's 6. I'm going to have to do something with some egg whites because I've got 6 egg whites now. So, alright, added 6 egg yolks. Then it says to put the lid on and cook again. And then we want to add some butter, 100 grams of butter. And then we have thick vanilla custard. Look at the texture of that. So now we're going to put it into something and cool while the pastry is cooking. All right, so once that cools, we're going to whip it again to add some air into it. I've got the pastry cooking at the moment. Am contemplating what I'm going to do with the egg whites and whether I wanted to make a second one, because I did think that I could send one to church with Darryl tomorrow, but I'd really like one as well. So we'll see. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to make up the scroll dough. So normal brioche dough with the few tweaks as per usual to make it the savoury scroll dough. So I'm going to mix that up and get that done as well. Yeah. Alright, I cut the pastry sheets based on the size of the tin, and they shrunk quite a lot more than I expected. But we're going to make it work. We'll make it in it, and if I have to trim it to make it look nice to send to church, then that's what I'll do. Or I'll eat it. You know, I don't actually have to send it to church. So we've just put the mix back in to spin and blend and get silky again. It probably could be a bit cooler before we did it, but it's not like things cool down very rapidly here in this weather. So I'm going to just plop it on the pastry that we've got here. I feel like it's a little bit more gelatinous than I would expect. As I said, I haven't used this recipe before, and it's been a long time since I've made vanilla slice, but this does feel a little like it's not emulsifying quite as well as I would like, if that makes sense, because you want it to be sort of a single texture. You want the inside of it to be sort of a single texture, and it's all sort of blobby. But we're just spreading it out as evenly as we can, putting some pressure on it to try and get it to emulsify into a more uniform structure like that. And then we've got our other piece of puff pastry that we're going to I think I'm going to do it up this way and push the puffy bits down into the pastry like that, and then this one's nice, this top bit's nice and flat. And then we will let this set. And then we will top it however I decide to top it. Just thinking that this I've managed to sort of push it over this way, and if I put something down here, it's going to hold it in that smaller rectangle. So I think I'm going to do that. And I'll bring you back once I'm doing something with it. I got sidetracked. My dough is well and truly proofed. Well and truly proofed. So what I want to do is split this into two. So we can do two different rollout of savoury dough. I haven't got anything else done that I want to get done. I've got garlic butter here, so I was going to use 2 of these per, and then I grabbed Parmesan and some ham. So I was going to do garlic, roasted garlic, butter, Parmesan, ham, not type scroll things. Let's so the butter hasn't defrosted yet, so I'm going to have to warm it slightly. So let's start working this out into a rectangle, and then what I want to do is blend the Parmesan with the butter. So maybe I'll do that in the Thermomix. Got a clean bowl here, so we got those four. They are slightly softened because they've been sitting out for a bit. And then if I do this whole bag of Parmesan, we throw this in the Thermomix and we blend this up, and then I'll shred the ham a little bit as well. And then we've got some ham. The half hams are half price, or $8 off, sorry, at Costco in this grocery cycle. I think I'm going to buy a couple of those, and then I will shred them up and put them in the freezer, and then I can use them for all this sort of thing. The shredded ham topping, but good quality ham. And that way I've got it diced up for this sort of thing without using the sliced ham. Like the kids use this sliced ham for all sorts of things, and that's fine. I freeze some, and I have some in the refrigerator from each shop. There's always ham, but the kids do use this predominantly as a sliced ham, and then I use it up for this. And I'm just going to give my hands a wash. Alright, and I might put, it should be plenty of salt because that butter, the butter was salted. It's got ham, Parmesan. So we're just going to roll this up as usual. If you roll the edges first, it keeps it nice and square, and then you bring the middle up to meet it. Unfilled edge up and over. Roll it to that join point, and there we go. Now we're just going to cut this up, get it on a baking tray, and then I'm going to repeat the process. So I just knotted these ones, so it'll be slightly different. So yeah. Now I was going to make that Dubai chocolate. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow as my Sunday squirrel bake along. I always have these egg whites sitting here to do something with. I have to figure that out. I really couldn't be bothered making macarons, which are my favourite thing to do with egg whites, but that's a lot of effort. So anyway, we can let these proof. I actually need to make granola. I'm not doing it today, but I do need to make granola. So what I might do is I might freeze these egg whites, because it won't matter if the texture is a little bit impaired when they're defrosted, because they're going to be put through the granola and baked. So I think that's what I'll do with these. So I'll keep a reminder that there's 6 egg whites in the freezer to use for the granola next month sometime when I make it. Alright, I pulled the vanilla slice out and I've dusted it with some icing sugar, but I cut a slice off the side that was a bit messy because I'm not comfortable sending it somewhere without trying it. The pastry is lovely and flaky. The custard is smooth. It's probably not quite the vanilla slice that I would choose. Like, there's lots of different types of vanilla slice. See, lots of different, like, they call them continentals and all the rest of it. This is a very solid custard, but it's perfectly tasty. Easily edible because it's firm. It's not coming out the sides of the pastry or anything. So if this was cut into cubes and offered on a platter, which is what the plan was for Darryl to do tomorrow, easily eaten. Flavor's nice. I think that's what I'll do. I think I cut the edge off that was a little bit messy because it was a bit smaller than the tin. But the rest of it, the pastry's lovely and flaky and all the rest of it. So I think I'm just going to put it in a container, send it with a knife, and Darryl can cut it into some strips or whatever to serve up with the savoury stuff as well. And then that way there's a sweet and a savoury. Finishing up today for dinner. Now, I have had these out since yesterday. Like, not out in the fridge since yesterday. Still not completely defrosted, but defrosted enough to pull apart. It just means they're going to take a little bit longer to cook, which is why I'm getting this moving at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to get all these drumettes out. We're going to do our normal and coat them in baking powder. Get them on the racks over the trays and cooking off, and fighting the flies. And then I'll bring you back when I'm doing the marinade like normal. And then this will be last. Oh, I pulled the buns out. I haven't shown them to you yet, have I? So let me get this done. My hands washed. I'll show you the buns that Darryl will take to church tomorrow. And yeah, that'll be it for the day. There's lots of other things I kind of contemplated doing today, but I didn't get there. So, you know, I do have to think about the fact that I'm going to be gone for a couple of days extra this trip to help Mum out. And being that it's the 6th week after a shop, I might have to do a few bits of prep for the kids for while I'm gone. So I might share that with you Monday, Tuesday. Like, I might do that Monday, Tuesday when I'm doing the planning and stuff, and make another video out of that. We will see how we go. But for the moment, I'll bring you back. Alright, chicken in the oven. This is what the scrolls turn out like. I brushed them with a little bit of ghee, and I'm keeping them covered to keep them really nice and soft. So that's the knots and the scrolls. Some of these will come home, I'm sure. But that is for them to take to church tomorrow, and chicken wings are in the oven. And this is what the chicken drumettes look like. So that is it for today. We're going to sit and eat these. The kids can have these. They can have some noodles if they want or whatever. And that's me finishing up for the day.